Hi, I'm James from Chaosium. This is a little bonus chat from an interview that I had with Jeff Richard a while ago, where we got off on a topic talking about the inspirations of different mediums on tabletop role-playing games. So we were talking about how Cthulhu is influenced by adventure movies, and then, maybe RuneQuest is influenced more by sagas and stories. Anyway, Jeff started saying some really interesting things. This isn't really a structured interview. It's just an interesting chat, but enjoy and subscribe to our channel.
That's a really good question. I'm going to dodge around it a little bit, and one of the things that always strikes me is that whenever we talk about role playing games, we there's a certain almost embarrassment to treat role playing games as a medium in its own right. And so the first thing is that I think that role playing games are tabletop role playing games is one of the most interesting and unique media that pretty much didn't exist more than 48 years ago. It's brand new. It's something that was created in not in your lifetime, but was created in my lifetime. Brand new art form, and I think because it's brand new, there's this. Oh well, we need to talk about how it connects to some other art form, and we can certainly look at things that we borrow and ideas that we pull out of movies and television series or books or computer games. Computer games has the same sort of thing. I actually think computer games is another completely artistically underrated media, but that's another conversation. But so first, let's talk about how role-playing games aren't like any of these. And then we can talk about what you draw in. Always remember, with a role-playing game, unlike in a book, unlike in a movie, we never have a primary character. We have a group of primary characters that do stuff together. Now that's radically different. So you think about this, the shows that have dozens or scores of important characters, like Game of Thrones, or many other series. Foundation doesn't have that many characters, but it has quite a few characters. But all the characters go off on story directions away from each other, and they meet back and forth occasionally, but most of the time they're not together. So that you can't do that in a role-playing game. Role-playing game, the characters, the protagonists of our story, even if they're not the most important characters in the setting, they're certainly they are the protagonists that drive our interaction with the setting. They're all together, and we have the rule, don't split the party, isn't just because it becomes difficult and dangerous when you split up a party, but also becomes narratively awkward. What happens to my player that's not in this scene? What do they do? Do they go on a beer run or pick up the pizza or something? What do we do? And the reason I get at that is that we have format. We have inherent format issues in the media of tabletop role-playing games that doesn't exist in computer games. Even when you do an MMORPG, it's not really like that. Certainly doesn't exist in television and movies, and doesn't really exist in books. In books, you usually have a primary for every chapter. Unless someone like Burroughs wrote it, or it's a stream of consciousness novel. You have for at least this chapter, you have a point of view character, and that's our point of view, and that's not how a role-playing game works. So with all of that aside, basically that's a giant caveat that says, hey, remember, we can talk about tropes from films and computer games, but they're actually pretty distant media away. I actually think music may be just as appropriate as a source of ideas and inspiration for role-playing games as movies and television. But when it then gets to it for RuneQuest, ones that movies that for me have huge effects on it, on how I like to think about Glorantha or streaming, are kind of random. Lawrence of Arabia has a gigantic influence. The David Lane, right? With Peter O'Toole, who I swear to God looks like David Bowie in that movie. But that epic tableau of the Arabian desert, the conflict between this English gentleman interacting with a tribal society and changing with this and becoming disillusioned with everybody during it. All of those to me are, these are cool things to explore. Whereas a lot of fantasy series, I actually don't find that terribly inspirational for me personally. I think I'll throw out two exceptions. Both from HBO. HBO's Rome from the early '90s, I thought was absolutely fantastic as a source of ideas. It's a remake of Shakespeare's plays Julius Caesar and Antony and Cleopatra, but it's so visually lush, and the people are they are backstabbing and brutal and glorious. There's gods and there's sex and there's backbiting and there's people drenched in the blood of bulls and all that sort of. So HBO's Rome, and then the other one is actually I find for me that's really inspirational are Westerns. So in particular, HBO's Deadwood is a great source of ideas for gaming, but so are things like spaghetti Western films for me. Good, the Bad, the Ugly, The Unforgiven isn't a spaghetti Western, but man, I mean, there you are. There you have your former adventurer who is really good at killing folk and really good at warfare, who settles down to be a good member of his clan and gets drawn back into it.
I think that Stagecoach would be possibly one of the best.
Oh yeah. Stagecoach. Another great one would be the John Wayne's the Seekers.
Yep. There's a fantastic set.
For me, Glorantha is very much there's very much a Western in many Gloranthan stories. You think about Prax and Dragon Pass, and you're dealing with a lot of it is the American West and Southwest.